Hello, it's Kenneth Oppel again. I'm going to do another reading from my latest book, Bloom. In the first reading I did, I introduced you to Anaya, but she is only one of the three main characters in the book. There are actually three point of view characters. And so in the second reading, I thought I'd introduce you to Petra, chapter 2 of Bloom. Petra walked into town, hoping this new doctor would be able to cure her. From school, it was only a 5-minute walk to downtown, if you could even call it that. There was a supermarket, a couple of bakeries, a hardware store and banks, and a bunch of bookstores. People liked reading on the island. The town was built around the marina, where there was a boardwalk and a few restaurants. There weren't that many cool places to hang out. The Royal Cinema got movies weeks later than anywhere else. There was the pizza place, the gross donut place, and the good donut place, and a bowling alley, which always smelled faintly of cat pee. When the weather was good, you could hang out on the playground at night. The town was pretty. Everyone said so. In summer, the main street bloomed with hanging flower baskets. Every Saturday, a market was held in the field near the marina, and day trippers would pour off the ferries from Vancouver and Victoria to buy organic fruits and vegetables, and beeswax candles, and weird crafts made out of yarn or driftwood or beach glass. Rain clattered against Petra's umbrella as she walked down the main street. Luckily, Petra had probably the best umbrella in the world. It was the biggest you could buy. She knew because she'd searched online. It was like a plastic torpedo that covered her entire body down to her waist. It kept her completely dry, so long as she had pants and rain boots, which she did because she watched the forecast constantly. If you were going to live in a constant rainfall zone with a water allergy, you needed an umbrella like this and a lot of Gore-Tex clothing. Mom and Dad were always talking about moving someplace drier. Apparently, Saskatoon got the least rain in Canada, and there were places in the US that were even drier, but they lived on the island their entire lives, and moving, especially to another country, was a big deal. Next to the Scotiabank was a small office building. Inside the lobby, Petra carefully folded her umbrella so it didn't splash her, then walked down the corridor until she came to a door that said Alicia Dumont, N.D. She reached for the doorknob and faltered. Her parents did not know that she'd secretly made herself an appointment with a doctor of naturopathic medicine. Dad especially would flip out. He was a nurse practitioner at the island hospital, and he didn't think naturopaths should even be called doctors. Their medicine wasn't scientific, and it didn't work, and it only distracted people from getting real treatment. But it seemed to Petra like no one really knew what the real treatment for her was, not even her specialist in Vancouver. The disease was so rare, aquagenic urticaria. Petra had seen the way Anaya rolled her eyes today in the hallway at school, and I thought she was such a martyr because she was sniffly and had zits, but at least Anaya's allergies weren't degenerative. Petra felt afraid every time she even thought that word. Degenerative. Getting worse and never stopping. Maybe her skin would become a permanent red itchy mess, and maybe one day she wouldn't even be able to drink water. She'd heard of a woman who could only drink soda. Tap water was literally dissolving this woman's esophagus, but there must be water in soda too. So it didn't make sense, did it? You needed water or you died. What if it got so bad she couldn't drink anything? What if she needed an IV in her arm? What if she got allergic to her own saliva and couldn't even swallow? She'd become a hideous monster and no one would love her and she would die. Her heart started to race, and Petra took slow, deep breaths, the way her therapist had taught her. She knew she was supposed to look calmly back at all her catastrophic thoughts and question them scientifically. So, her allergy might not be degenerative. So far, it hadn't gotten any worse. She could still drink water. Even if her skin did get worse, it didn't mean she would be hideous. And if she did get hideous, well, this one always stalled her. This exercise was supposed to make her feel better. She wasn't sure it did this time. She took one last deep, slow breath and turned the doorknob. She didn't know much about naturopaths, except they used different medicines that were supposed to help the body heal itself. That sounded pretty good to her, being cured. She pushed the door open and went inside. Petra had expected the naturopath's office to look like a medieval alchemist's shop, with shelves crammed with dried herbs and weird-smelling elixirs, but it was just a normal waiting room with ugly chairs and old magazines she didn't want to read, and a window with a male receptionist behind it looking up at her with a smile. He looked like an older version of the high school principal on that TV show about the kid who keeps skipping school because he's a supermodel and the principal keeps trying to expel him but never can. "Hi, Petra," the receptionist said cheerfully. Oh, great, Petra thought, wincing at the sound of her name. This island was way too small. With only 10,000 people, practically everyone knew, or at least recognized, everyone else. The receptionist's name tag said Tom Thresher, and Petra figured he was probably the father of Marlene Thresher, who was in the grade above her. Petra glanced furtively at the two other people in the waiting room. She didn't want anyone telling her parents they'd seen her here. She tilted her dripping umbrella against the wall. "Still pouring out there, Petra?" Petra wished he'd stop calling her by name. She went to the window and handed over her health card. "Yep." "Your mom or dad here with you?" "They couldn't make it," she said. Mr. Thresher's smile folded itself into a frown. "Oh, our office policy with minors is we can't give a consultation without a parent present." Petra had prepared for this. "I have a note from my mum." She pulled it from her pocket and slid it over the counter. She tried not to look concerned while Mr. Thresher read it. She'd written it in her best handwriting, used her best old person vocabulary, and practiced her mother's signature before signing it. Mr. Thresher said, "Maybe I'll just give your mum a call." Petra's heart sank. "Really?" "If I could just get her number." "She's at work," said Petra hurriedly. "You'd probably just get her voicemail. Isn't the note enough?" Mr. Thresher leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Petra, there are 2 spelling mistakes in this note. I went to school with your mother, and she was the best speller in our grade." Cursing inwardly, Petra forced herself not to blink. Of course they went to school together, and of course her mother would be an excellent speller. Mum loved rules. The more, the better. "She wrote it in kind of a hurry," Petra persisted. "They don't know you're here, do they?" Petra decided she needed a new strategy. Pity. She made her eyes as big as possible. "I have a really, really serious allergy," she began. Mr. Thresher's forehead creased sympathetically. "I know, Petra. I have heard about that. And I'm sorry I forged the note," Petra said. "That was wrong. But my parents would never let me come," she was whispering now. "They think it's all fake, like witchcraft." The receptionist sighed sadly. "So I walked all the way here in the pouring rain. I could have died." This last bit was completely over the top, but Petra thought she needed to pull out all the stops. "You poor thing," said Mr. Thresher. "But you still need your parents' permission. Maybe if they read this booklet." "That won't help," Petra said. She'd just given an Oscar-winning performance. What was wrong with this guy? "Can't I even talk to the doctor?" she asked. Another sad shake of the head. Petra's frustration flared into anger. "Oh, come on. It's not like I'm getting brain surgery or anything. Not that she could even do brain surgery. I mean, she's not even a real doctor, is she?" "Who's not a real doctor?" said a woman in a white coat, walking into the room with a file folder. Petra felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Forget it." She spun around and marched straight out of the office. She'd lied, she'd been rude, and she'd totally failed in her mission. No hope for a cure today. She felt a hot tingle behind her eyes. But she wouldn't cry. She taught herself not to because she was allergic to her own stupid tears and would only end up with a splotchy, itchy face. So she used her trick. She pretended she was looking at everything through the wrong end of a telescope, so everything was far, far away. Even her own feelings. Nothing mattered nearly as much. It got her through feeling sad and feeling nervous and feeling downright terrified sometimes, at least for a little bit. So it was just a necessary trick. But at school, some kids thought she was all aloof and tragic and brave, and they liked it and wanted to hang around her, like Rachel, who was an okay friend, but didn't really understand her. Not like Anaya had. But Petra had lots of friends, and it was nice to be popular and, yes, pretty. It wasn't a crime. The last time she cried was after Anaya had betrayed her, and since then, not another tear. In the lobby, she zipped her coat, pulled up her hood, and realized she'd forgotten her umbrella back in the office. No way could she go back after the scene she'd made. She couldn't face them. She peered out at the rain. It wasn't so bad right now. She thought it was brightening in the west. If she went fast, she could make it home in under 15 minutes. Anyway, she had her emergency umbrella. Being well organized was one of her top 10 strengths. Everything neat and tidy and dry. From her backpack, Petra pulled out the stubby, compact umbrella. One good gust of wind would finish it off. She held it low so it scraped the top of her head. She angled herself through the lobby door, plunged her free hand into her pocket, and headed down the street. The weird thing was, Petra actually wanted to walk in the rain. Even after she'd become allergic to water, she still loved the sound of the rain, the smell of it drying on the road in the sun. And she still had swimming dreams all the time. Like the one last night. They were intense. The feeling of being immersed, water pushing against her face as she slid through it. She always woke up from those dreams excited but sad because swimming was something lost to her, along with her plans to become a marine biologist. It sounded like a bad joke, but that really had been her dream job when she was younger. The rain came down harder, big, fat, fast drops. She heard a car, no, something larger, a truck, coming up behind her and moved off to the side. As she angled her umbrella slightly to deflect the spray, she stumbled on some stupid black plant poking up. The umbrella jerked back, and a barrage of raindrops smacked her exposed face. No. She righted the umbrella and swiped at her face with her sleeve, but really just smeared more water around and got her hand wet in the bargain. She sped up, waiting for the itching to start, and she hated Mr. Thresher for not letting her see the doctor, and she might as well hate the doctor too. Petra was going to have hives because of this. She saw the gas station coming up and thought she'd better get inside, where she could at least dry off her face. For all the good that would do. She imagined the water sinking into her pores, bubbling like a witch's brew. And here it came, the familiar heat, the crazy-making itch, all over her cheeks, her forehead, around her mouth. It was going to be bad. This one was going to be a real mess. Heart-thumping, she hurried for the gas station. Behind her, a car honked, and she turned to see a white car with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police crest on the door. Petra growled. Actually growled. She did not need this. The patrol car pulled over, sending a skiff of water against her boots. The passenger window rolled down, and Sergeant Diane Sumner leaned over. "What are you doing? Get in." "I'm okay," Petra said, and kept walking. "Petra, get in." Petra looked around to see if anyone was watching. Her mother had an uncanny habit of showing up in her cruiser, usually at the worst possible moment, like that time she was skipping school with Rachel or kissing Marco Gasparini, who, by the way, looked exactly like the older teen brother in that movie about the kids who were actually robots, after a dance. No was pretty much her mother's favorite word. No to using her phone after 8 at night, which made it extremely difficult to manage her social media brand. No to dating until she was 16. No to a body piercing. The rain intensified. Petra shrugged off her backpack, opened the door, and dropped into the car. She jammed the umbrella and pack at her feet. "You're wet," Mum said. "Very good, Sherlock," Petra thought. "There's tissues in the glove compartment," said Mum. Petra grabbed some and started dabbing her face. Was it already red and welty? It was so itchy. "You have your cream with you?" Mum asked. "I forgot it at home." "You said you were going to Rachel's after school." Here we go, thought Petra. May as well turn on the siren. "Things changed," said Petra. "You weren't at that piercing parlor, were you?" asked Mum. "Maybe you should just take me down to the station for questioning," Petra said. Her mother pulled onto the road and glanced over without amusement. "There better not be a ring in your belly button." "There's not." Petra dragged out her phone so she could look at her face. Usually after 5 minutes of getting wet, her skin was a complete mess. She stared in amazement. Her face was fine. It was still damp, but she couldn't see a thing. She kept staring, waiting for a rash to spread. When Mum pulled into the driveway, Petra had the door open before the car was even fully stopped. She ran for the front door. Inside, she dumped her things in the hallway and rushed to the bathroom. She turned on all the lights and stared. Not a single red spot anywhere on her face. Instantly, the raging heat and itchiness she'd felt outside evaporated. She'd imagined all of it. "There's nothing," she cried, turning to her mother. "Look!" "Well, it does look clear," Mum said. "Let's just wait a bit longer." "It's been way over 10 minutes, said Petra. "I got splashed right in the face." Giddy elation overtook her. I'm cured!" Petra ran to the kitchen and turned on the tap and put her hand under the water. Within seconds, a red patch spread over her skin, and she felt the itch coming. Her breath caught. It didn't make sense. Why the tap water and not the rainwater? Beyond the sliding door, rain danced off the wooden deck. She rushed to the door. "Petra!" Before Mum could stop her, she shoved open the door and stepped out. "Petra, come back inside!" The rain pelted her. She stretched out her bare arms and turned her face to the sky. Rain pooled in her closed eyes, dribbled down her cheeks, traced the outlines of her lips. The red patch on her hand wasn't even itchy anymore. It was like the rain was cleansing her. Rain drenched her hair, dripped onto her shoulders, ran in rivulets down her midriff. "Mum, it's okay. Look, nothing. This rain's different." It was her first shower in 3 years. Her personal hygiene was chemical wipes and special cleansing lotions, never water from a tap. But this rain, she wanted more and more on her. She tipped her head back, opened her mouth as wide as it would go, and felt the drops hitting her lips and tongue and teeth. She felt like a desert wanderer who just discovered a clear lake. "Petra, what if it's just delayed?" her mum was saying. but she hurried past Mom, back into the kitchen, leaving wet footprints across the tiles. Rummaging through cupboards, she grabbed every big bowl she could find. Outside, she set them on the deck to collect the rain. As if applauding her idea, the rain came even harder, clattering on the deck like a heartbeat gone crazy with joy. So now you've met Petra, the second hero of my book, Bloom. I hope you enjoyed that.